So speaking of mice, I went ahead and got, and so this is what I did not get from Japan Retro Direct. And this is the mouse for a game called Bikkuri Mouse, which I think is like Surprise Mouse or something like that. And this is just a USB mouse, honestly, more than anything. I'll tell you all in a little bit that I got this. But it's basically a mouse specifically for a PS2 game called Bikkuri Mouse. And this is an interesting game, but first I want to show you the manual itself, because the manual in this thing is really interesting. So basically, well, maybe not super interesting, but it's got a nice presentation. Like, so you can see right here, the manual is not on its side. It comes down like here horizontally, and then as you flip it, you know, all the stuff is in here, you know, this way instead. But if you get to the individual canvases, so I guess I should explain, this is like a Mario Paint style game. So you have different canvases that you can kind of draw on, and each of these canvases have their own page with their own kind of art here. And I thought it was like a really nice presentation for these kind of things. It looked nice. But yeah, so essentially, you know, this is a Mario Paint style game, and so there's not a lot to it. You just kind of sit there and go to these different boards, and as you draw on them, you know, depending on the board, you get like different effects. So you get like one that's like an oil painting kind of thing, that's kind of like, you know, doing Japanese calligraphy, but you can draw whatever you want, obviously. And then there's like a more electronic one. Apparently this game was made by the person who did Electroplankton, and so there's this very like Electroplankton style board you can draw on as well that kind of makes music. There's more of like a generic canvas, as well as some other gimmicky ones. And there's like a mini game that basically is the equivalent of that Mario Paint, like fly swatter mini game, where you're like bouncing the eggs based off these lines you draw. And yeah, it's just kind of like that weird mouse software suite. So I spent about 2 hours with it, and I was kind of like, okay, I'm kind of done with this. There's a lot of fun cutscenes. So every time you start a new canvas, it basically shows you a cutscene that plays, and it's kind of goofy. Some of the characters like are speaking in some weird tongue that's definitely not Japanese. It just sounds kind of like there's like this old man that's like at some point. It's like, oh my god, this old man. And yeah, it's just kind of a weird game. The one gimmick this game has that I feel like that, you know, makes it stand out from Mario Paint is that there are a lot of, well, it's not so much the gimmick itself that stands out, but how you interact with this gimmick. So there's a lot of like pre-made graphics you can put into place. So if you think of Mario Paint, you have like different stamps, different brush types you can make. So you can have like, you know, some kind of like the star from Mario, you can like draw using the star or something like that, right? In this case, how they handle that is you can like turn on a magic brush, and depending on the color of your brush and the shape that you draw, it will basically draw pre-drawn things. So you can like create trees, create bushes, create rocks, things like that. And so you can do a lot of these things with this brush, where you're just creating all these different objects and things like that. And it's just not very intuitive, because there's nothing in the game that really tells you what you need to draw to make what. So it's just a lot of experimentation, and there's a lot of options for these drawings, and a lot of colors, and a lot of shapes you can do. And it just doesn't really, like unless you memorize all these different shapes and colors and what they make, it'd be really hard to make something with it. And so, you know, where Mario Paint, you just look at the top of the screen, you click on and go, okay, there's my, I don't know, Game Boy, right? Or in here, it's like, well, how do I draw a bamboo tree? Well, you have to draw, you take the, you know, I don't know, brush and circle it, and then there goes the bamboo tree. I don't know. Like, it's so hard to know how it works. And you know, some of them make sense. Like, you know, if you're in a puddle of water or something, you draw a circle with the blue marker. But sometimes like you draw that, and then like a rock comes out of the center, and it's like not, like, I don't know what determined whether a rock was in that water or not. So it's kind of weird stuff like that. But I do think it's a very quirky looking game, and I think it's fun visually. So if you're into like some weird, you know, weird PlayStation 2 games, there you go. You can do that, I guess.